Showtime.
Showtime. Showtime.
Ooh, showtime.
Showtime. Showtime.
Showtime.
Showtime. Showtime. Showtime.
Ed Berliner, the fastest show in sports.
Greetings, true believers. Welcome back into the fastest show in sports. I am your host and ringmaster, Ed Berliner. The cowboy next to me is Mike Wise, formerly of ESPN and the New York Times and so many other places. And because I always go with a Hawaiian shirt, why did you go with the cowboy hat today? It's there's nothing wrong with it, just a wonder.
No, it's all right, Ed. I appreciate you asking, sir. Recently, I've converted to the MAGA movement. I believe in true believers. I'm in Panama, obviously, but it's not the Panama Canal. It's the American Canal to us down here. We're about manifest destiny and taking over the goddamn world, Ed, and we're going to do it. Okay, I'm kidding. I'm an amateur Caucasian social justice minister who had a cool cowboy hat I wanted to put on. All right,
Well,
sorry.
but that's okay. It's all right. No, you were working off that first line there. I thought you were going to stick with it because, frankly, I think you had millions of people around the world completely mesmerized, and they were wondering next what you were going to do to announce your takeover of the Panama Canal or the American Canal, depending on how you look at it.
The American Canal.
God. All right, man. We got
what a world! What a world! We're at war, but the fastest show in sports takes precedence.
You know something, and I've said this a million times to friends of mine, that with every stupid thing that's going on in the world right now, this is like my little corner of the world. It's like
this is the sanctuary.
It is.
This is like when those athletes are arrested for numerous violations, whether it be murder or otherwise, and they find their sanctuary on the court. That's like us.
We have not found religion. We have found sports and a place in the viral world. Please, I don't want to go there, but it's what I keep telling Shannon all the time. This is like an oasis, is what this feels like a lot of times. It's just because we're not sitting here talking politics. Oh, stop. I almost went there, but I didn't want to go there. All right, long time to go, short way to get there. Let's go ahead and get to it. The NBA Finals is finally over, and Mike, I can tell you, finally, after all this and everything we've been through, I was bored silly. I just got to tell you, I get it. Yeah. It's athletic. I've covered the NBA for years. I've been around the sport. I've been around the people there. And I tried my best. Mike, I tried. I did everything I could to get into it. And I enjoyed the athleticism. And I liked the storylines and all that other. But I was bored silly. There were two blowouts in this series. Come on.
Well, I don't know. I got into it only because I thought the Pacers' run was mesmerizing. But this is the sad thing. It's one thing to not care or sort of be casually involved, and then like I can't do it. There's no star power. It's not doing it for me. The NBA is not what Can you imagine if you got invested in this and you get to Game 7 and the best player on the team that could pull off the upset for the ages
out?
But tears his Achilles in the first quarter after he hits three-pointers in the play, and all of us, the state of Indiana, the great Hoosier state, the place where it's 49 other states, but in Indiana it's basketball. That guy, Tyrese Halliburton, tears his Achilles tendon, and then at that point, you're watching the Pacers, be Warriors, but it was like. It was like Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid at the end. Like they were going to come out of the Bolivia thing and they were going to get shot to death. You knew it. And eventually they did. And it was just a sad ending to ending to a great finals for basketball.
When that happened, when Halliburton went down, and not only that, but there's a piece of video making the rounds on social media these days that shows, it's an ISO shot of his leg that shows the exact instant that the Achilles popped, and you can see the back muscle just disconnect all of a sudden, and it's real. I checked on it, but when I saw that, I'm watching it going, that's it. This game is over. Oklahoma City, if they sit back and relax, they're going to win this by 20 points. Because for all the wonder that we talked about with this series, Mike, it seems that if you take one player out, something's wrong. Shouldn't a team, I get it that you have a star player and there's that one big key that's there, but shouldn't you at least be able to be competitive when you lose that one guy when something happens?
Well, here's the thing. They were, Ed. They were for almost 3 quarters until they finally lost it at the end. They showed up. They were
They
great.
were good at halftime.
And at the end, like they couldn't overcome the loss of their best player, like most teams. So I don't know. I don't fault them. I don't fault. But it is interesting what you said about how I just couldn't get into it because I got an email from Adam Silver, and Adam Silver, I'll drop a name here. I've known Adam Silver since the '90s when I would have these ridiculous parties on the Upper West Side of New York. I thought I was some society guy, but
When
they
I
weren't
had
like
money and lived in New York City.
Right. But I didn't have that much money. I mean, I was probably making $100,000 a year. But for me, on the Upper West Side in the '90s, oh my God, I was a squire. I mean, you couldn't, it was
Sure.
I came from Trailer Park, Sacramento, and where I thought a good meal was Sizzler, to like the greatest city in the world, and all of a sudden, I'm on the Upper West Side, and I'm inviting, well, at that point he was head of NBA entertainment, but he was a single guy. He would show up at my parties. Shoot, Spike Lee came one night. Philip Seymour Hoffman came one night, although not to see me. There was another person in an apartment away from. We had a dual party, and she was head of his play
Look at
company.
you dropping
But
names
anyway,
like crazy here. Look at
but anyway, so
very
Silver, I've known him for I could walk up to Silver at a game to this day and go, and we will catch up over 10 minutes. It doesn't matter unless he's got an interview with NBA China or NBA Italy. He'll give me time. He sends me an email, except it's not an email to me. It's an email to everybody that actually attended a game in Mexico or Latin America, because there was a Mexico game last year and I got a credential for it. And it was in Spanish and it was saying, "Welcome to our NBA new generation." And it's all in Spanish. And I'm going, oh my God, now I'm just like the NBA fan that Adam Silver wants to convert from Latin America. And they're so desperate because they really are in a tough situation. This is not happened to the NBA where their star power has faded so quickly and so fast since Michael Jordan retired for the second time, and all of a sudden you had a literally a finals with a 50-year-old David Robinson and a rookie boring guy Tim Duncan, and the center for the Knicks was Chris Dudley and Herb Williams because Patrick Ewing was hurt. So that was 1999. You're looking at 26 years later. The NBA is in a real transition here with these new stars. And I think they're in good shape, but it's going to take a while for these guys to catch on. And they're not going to catch on if they keep ruining their Achilles like Jason Tatum has, like Damian Lillard has. I mean, it's amazing that these guys have and then in the finals a few years ago, maybe it was 6 years ago now. I mean, I remember Kevin Durant's Achilles went out. Have you ever had an Achilles go out?
No, I have not. Nope.
I haven't either. I've had a knee.
I've had a couple of knees separate from time to time. I've had both my knees break at one time, and I've had them fixed.
Yeah, so I've had ACL surgery, all that. But too. I remember Kevin Blackistone, great guy. You probably know him or know of his name. He great sports journalist. He still does a column for the Washington Post, teaches journalism in Maryland. But at any rate, Kevin was still working for, I think, the Dallas Morning News at the time.
I think it was Dallas
in
Morning News, yeah.
And we were playing media basketball during an off day in the finals one year in the Pacers practice facility, and all of a sudden you just heard this pop, and there was nobody around. And Kevin went down and he looked around and he goes, "Who hit me? Who hit me?" And he felt like he was kicked by a horse. His Achilles just popped on it by itself, and he said it was the worst pain, and he can't even imagine it. And so, at any rate, I can't imagine what Tyrese Halliburton felt in that moment. And now that there's an ISO out there, crazily enough, I'm such a sick bastard, I got to go see it.
Yeah, you got to go find it. Yeah, you have to, because you can see it right away. But that brings up the next issue here with the NBA. because we've talked about the star power here. It doesn't make a difference. I mean, the
Yeah.
NBA is going to make billions of dollars regardless of anything we say here. The NBA finals are still going to make a ton of money. All the teams are going to make money. Internationally, globally, it makes gobs of money. But at the same breath, can they now overcome the and I can hear it now. People are going, wait a minute, Ed, when you say they don't have star power, you're missing guys like SGA and Halliburton. No, I'm not missing them. But are these players the star power that the league needs right now as it transitions to an entirely different kind of league, an entirely different kind of game? I don't know. Again, it comes down to the basketball purist will love it. I mean, it doesn't make a difference what you do to the game. They're going to love it. But you still have to attract that casual fan, that average fan. And I'm not sure without having a little more star power, if they're not going to have a few years, I don't want to say down years, but maybe years where they're not as important to the overall sports conversation?
Yeah, that could be. I don't know, only because, and maybe I'm biased because, the NBA was where I made my bones in sports writing.
Yes, you are biased. Yes.
And so I could, and basketball is my favorite sport. I played at very low level at a junior college a long time ago. And I live vicariously through my 14-year-old now, and it's sick and it's wrong, but I do. And I love the game, but I could see the drop off a little bit. I think it's all predicated on, can you usher, can Stephen Curry, LeBron James, I'm trying to think of some of the older guys, the Klay Thompsons.
But why are we still mentioning them? They're the old guys. They're the OG.
Well, because they're still NBA All-Stars and they're great players. I mean, Kevin Durant was just,
but they're at the end of their careers.
Traded to the Houston Rockets for a pile of draft picks, and I think Kevin Durant is carbon dated at this point.
Well, but that's another point too, because everybody, not everybody, but I'm seeing a lot of the NBA types are going, hey, Kevin Durant went to Houston. Houston has immediately made themselves a contender for the NBA championship next season. Stop, please. I mean, the hyperbole goes only so far here. I mean, as you said, Kevin Durant's not young anymore, and to say that he's automatically a run to the NBA championship, and you're still living with an old G, one of the older guys, and you're not putting it together with the young guys. It just seems to me that that's bullshit.
Well, you hit on something, and I didn't finish my last thought. But the OG thing put me on it, which is, I mean, I don't have a pulse on young America, but I do know if you look at the social media numbers, everything like that, the NBA is talked about more than the NFL, than baseball, than hockey. It is still like, and so they have captured this young audience. And part of it is it's cultural. It's, if you're a white kid in the suburbs, that's how you identify with black people sometimes. If you don't know anybody, and all of a sudden, wow, these guys are these cool athletes. They happen to be black, and I don't have anybody like that in my neighborhood. But damn it, I just love watching Damian Lillard, or I watch, he's just got an attitude. And these guys, and so a lot of people, and so I just think there's a lot of things that the NBA has going for it, including a youth movement. But to keep that, I agree. These guys have to turn into major stars soon. Now, as we say all this, remember, this show is taped on a Tuesday. A Wednesday, by the time it'll be out, and everybody and their mom will be watching us, Cooper Flagg will be the number one pick by the Dallas Mavericks.
Yeah.
And he will join one of the most entertaining players of all time, Kyrie Irving. Bad attitude or not, Kyrie's kind of rehabilitated himself as a player, and so as a guy, and so he's coming back from an injury. And they have some nice pieces on that team, Anthony Davis, and so all of a sudden you have you have probably what people are saying is the greatest white American-born player since Larry Bird, which is crap, because I don't believe that you need a white guy to sell the league anymore. I think we're past that in some ways.
Okay, but wait, stop right there. The why then is that still being said? Because you're right. I have already read and seen a number of things from these various so-called bullshit experts, and I call them that because they're not. They're just social media mavens, if anything else, talking about the fact that here comes Cooper Flagg. It's just what the NBA needs right now. They need a star white player to build up the NBA, which is absolute nonsense at this point. Why are we in 2025 still talking about the fact that the NBA has got a star white player? How about a star player? I mean, that's the thing that nails me all the time.
Yeah.
We're still caught in that because the NBA doesn't need all black players, doesn't need all white players. They've got great talent. End of story. Yeah. But it seems as if a lot of people just want to go past that. I don't know why. That has me angry.
I just took off my shades, and I feel like I'm in the Unforgiven right now, Ed.
That's
I could be a cowboy.
Of.
Yeah, no, okay. This is kind of corny, but all right. So I guess what you're saying makes all sense in the world. But look at the Caitlin Clark, Angel Reese thing. We're still race obsessed in America, obviously, and through the prism of sports. But I think almost it's more of a novelty in some ways. Like all the great players of Caucasian ancestry at this point are coming from Europe. Luka Doncic is a megastar. Nikola Jokic is probably going to be on the Mount Rushmore of NBA players when it's all said and done. So these are and so now you have this guy who was born in Maine. It is kind of like it does have like a Bird-esque quality to it. It's sort of a novelty act more than anything. But if you look around the rosters in the end,
Mike, but the point is not that it's a great white player coming into the NBA. It's a
great player who happens to be
an American player. American fans still have that jingoistic attitude where they want to root for the American player. So if you've got this great American player coming in, that is worth its weight in marketing and ticket gold at this point, because I do believe that's what the NBA is very quietly starting to move towards. Maybe less of a European influence and more of an American influence. And you know that the marketing people on Madison Avenue, on Park Avenue at the NBA offices, they're going, gimme, baby. Give me a good American player and I'll eat that alive.
Well, yeah, it's funny because David Stern's whole goal was to see an NBA what like you have today. Yao Ming went to the Hall of Fame. My gosh, Manu Ginobili is one of the great players of all time. All these wonderful players from around the world that grew up not, wishing they were soccer players, but basketball players. And that to me is an amazing thing. And so, but you're right. The flip side of that is how much have you outsourced our game? And so are you going to get it back at all? And this kid from Maine shows all the qualities that, but I also believe, look, like Bird told me this a long time ago over like his last year. I was just some Cub reporter that talked him into lunch. He was like, look, I go, how does it feel to be white in a black league? He goes, it don't matter if you're from Kuwait or Iraq or Indiana. If you're 6'9" and you like to play and you got some skill, you're going to make it. And his whole idea was, there are only great basketball players in the NBA, some of whom happen to be black, most of whom happen to be black, some of whom happen to be white. If you look at the players now, what blew me away from just 10 years ago maybe is how many players in the league are white American players. Tyler Hero, TJ McConnell, and they're all, Peyton Pritchard, sixth man of the year. These guys all like, who's the kid? Austin Reeves. Like if your parents, this was the thing that I was seeing when I was starting my child in hoops. All these parents were telling me, oh, you got to get him out of hoops because the kids that get scholarships in there, they wouldn't say black, but that's what they were saying.
What they were saying,
like get him into lacrosse, get him into baseball. I'm like, I don't give a crap if my son wants to play basketball, I'm not going to steer him toward another sport because I think he won't get a scholarship. Hardly anybody gets scholarships anyway. I just want him to like the game because I love the game. And sure enough, more parents have felt like me who actually have good genes and whose kids can play because they kept their kids in that sport. And there's a lot of why. And the other thing is too, like, I don't know why I was bringing this up. We're totally going off base here, but when I said a lot of African American players over the years, they've been the backbone of the NBA in some ways. some of those kids, especially poor kids, have been priced out because everybody's got a pro trainer now.
Right.
And so all of a sudden
Game has
you're like
changed.
sort of like these, yeah. And unless you get identified by a top elite AAU program, you're not getting the attention or the money or the training you desire. And all these other kids whose parents have money are, including the parents of pro player. I mean, sorry, the kids of pro players who've made it in the league.
See, there's two things that I think the NBA is going to look forward to eventually, and that I wouldn't be surprised at all if it's sitting on their radar. First of all, the NBA is very slowly starting to get away from what I call the Ja Morant style of basketball and the era of basketball there. They're getting away from the knuckleheads,
Oh,
the
I know where
idiots,
you're
the
going. I
morons.
know where you're going.
Well, wait a
I
minute.
know where you're
Hang on.
going.
But it's a fair cop. They're getting away from
Okay.
what has been all the issues off the court and all of the nonsense that happened, and they're getting into players that are more family friendly. People are enjoying bringing their kids to it now because they have players who relate a little bit better to the fans, they relate a little bit better to the game, and they don't feel so offended, maybe, if you will, about the game because, look, when you get down to it, there's a lot of sports that have that sort of an element that's involved in it, and people don't want to take their kids to it. They don't want them to be around it. Now they do. You've got that family friendly. That's important to them, yes? It's got to be.
Yeah, you're right, Ed. This is the part of the show where we go back into being the two white dudes who are old, and we don't want them. We don't want them young brothers with the
That's not what
do-rags
I
and the.
said, and you know it.
But yeah, you are saying like
That's
it's all
not what I'm
code, Ed.
saying.
It's all code.
That's
But
not what I'm saying. It's not all code.
I get what you're saying. Look, half the league is still tatted up. I don't know if I
I
want a
don't care about
tattoo at this
tattoos,
point.
yeah.
It's so sad.
Not
But
bad.
but you're right that like the whole element of finger guns and all the dumb shit that John Morant does off
That's
the
my
court. It's
point.
like, you know what, you're not, you know what, it's like a great lesson from any player, from Allen Iverson, who did it wrong, to Shaquille O'Neal, who did it right, is, bring your boys from the neighborhood along if they're self-sufficient and they want to get better. If they don't, and you're their primary source of income, and all they want to do is bring you back to Hampton Roads, the worst neighborhood in that town, then you need to get rid of them. Well, John Morant has to make that decision at this point.
Look, but
And
you
you
remember
call
too,
it inner city in the
care where
hood,
Ja Morant
whatever.
comes from.
He
I
is,
don't care. To be
what?
honest, I don't know where he
But it's
where he
how
grew
he
up.
behaves.
I
It's
don't.
how he. It's all his stuff off the court.
That's my point. There's two things that the NBA, well, like every sport now, but the NBA is more concerned about making sure that A, they're a good family game. You can bring your kids to it. You can go on a date to it. You can bring your family. You can enjoy it and have a good sport. They want to do that. It's important to get that audience. The second audience is the gambler. As long as if we have the families and we have the degenerate gamblers sitting over here and they're both happy, they win.
Yeah.
Everybody wins at that
Yes.
point. And they've already taken care of the
Yes.
gambler. They have those very well taken
Right.
care of.
Right.
But the other thing,
that-
and I wanted to make sure that we talked about this too, because I found this to be hysterical. And it has the NBA connotation to it. There's a guy named Mark Titus who has a couple of shows on Barstool Sports, which I have to be honest with you right up front, I don't like giving a lot of publicity to. I don't give them any if I can avoid it, because I was there when Barstool Sports was born. I was there when it was a free newspaper in Boston, and I had them on my show Sports Pulse, and they used to come on and talk sports, but then a lot of the stuff came out about their sexist nature, a lot of the thing they said about women, a lot of the thing they said about other players, and I banned them from the show. I wouldn't have them anymore, but I was the first guy to put Dave Portnoy and his group on the air. So I feel...
So you're to blame. So you're to blame.
I sometimes take full blame for it that I'm there, but I'm sure that Dave would be very happy because it made him a millionaire. But on Barstool
Yeah.
Sports, there's a
Well,
guy named Mark Titus who absolutely went after SGA. Completely, totally went after him. And I wanted you to see this because here's a guy, and for those of you watching on the YouTube channel, you can see some of the graphic here. For those of you listening in the podcast, I'll help you along. But here's Mark Titus. He's a walk-on at Ohio State. In 4 seasons, the guy played 48 minutes, scored 9 points. He failed a tryout with the Harlem Globetrotters, and his big claim to fame is writing a book about being a bench warmer. But here's a guy, Mike, who comes out and goes, I have zero respect for SGA. Zero. None. I effing hate watching him. I think he's the worst MVP of my lifetime. I think it's a disgusting watch. SGA has zero bag whatsoever, whatever the hell that's supposed to mean. But he is going off, and I'm not going to read the whole thing here because it's a complete nonsensical rant from a complete idiot who likes to think of himself as a basketball expert and another one of these screamers on a talk show. And the reason I bring him up is because Bob Ryan of the Boston Globe answered him on Twitter. And when the tweet came out, it's in the lower right-hand corner right here if you see it. Bob Ryan says, who is this shithead? And I got to tell you, I did not get along with Bob Ryan while I was there. I spent 4 years in Boston, and Bob is a very difficult guy to get along with. He has his group, his clan, and everything. People will tell you, Bob's a brilliant writer, absolutely brilliant. But we really didn't get along that well. But in this case, Bob Ryan, I bow to you. Please, you are the hero of the day, because it's about time we started hammering some of this, because a guy like Titus is just doing this for nothing more than clickbait. He wants me to talk about him. He wants you to talk about him. But I'm not going to talk about him in a positive sense. I'm going to hammer away at the guy. He is an absolute, incredibly phony fraud. He's just one of these clickbait artists. He's a troll, and he gets people to talk about him because he says something negative. How can you say anything negative about SGA, Mike? I mean, I'm not even a basketball guy, and I can tell you this guy was brilliant, has been brilliant this season. But here's a guy who is jealous as shit of the kind of talent that a guy like SGA has, and has to make a point of saying how much he hates him. We need a lot less of that in sports than anything else.
You know what? That's a great rant. You know what's funny about that whole thing was when you put up the Mark. This is how I must just be too old, because I had never heard of Mark Titus. I knew Stu Presidente Portnoy because he's been accused of sexual assault, and he's just seems like a rotten human being, other than his pizza reviews. And but I will say this. It's interesting because when you put up that graphic of him, I saw like walk on at Ohio State, played 9 minutes in 48 minutes in 9 seasons, scored. I'm thinking failed trial with Harlem Globetrotters. I was thinking, God, SGA, I didn't know all this about his backstory. I thought we were talking about SGA, which actually hooks Mark Titus's column up, because I don't, other than he's from Canada, I know nothing about SGA. I think he went to Kentucky or something. I have no idea about it. And so there, whatever, there's a, I mean, he's that, he's the player that time forgot. He shoots inside the 3-point line. He rarely shoots from the 3. He gets to his spots. He's like, he's any jump shooter from the 1980s. He's Bernard King or whatever. He doesn't do anything flashy. He has great body control. He's all the things that basketball was: efficient, economy of movement, all the wonderful things the game was before the dunks and the 3-pointers took
He's
over.
Without question one of the, if not the
style
best players in the NBA.
But you're right,
now.
like you're just trying to get clickbait. If you hate us, I mean, okay, there's sports hate and there's real hate. You really can't stand Shea Gilgeous-Alexander. I mean, you're a moron of a human being.
But to denigrate a guy like this, who obviously has an incredible amount of talent and just led his team to the NBA championship. And you may think that, well, I don't necessarily agree with what he does. Look, Howard Cosell was one of my heroes. And Cosell's, one of his first books was I Never Played the Game. And people always used to say to Cosell, how can you talk intelligently about sports when you never played the game? He said, and I actually had this conversation with Howard one day at the ABC radio studios, where he said, I pay attention.
Wait.
And I am an intelligent man who can figure out exactly what I'm watching.
Hold on, Ed.
Yeah.
Let's just salute this moment in the fastest show in sports. Like, that's cool. You had a conversation with Howard Cosell. I don't care how old you are watching this. You probably have, if you haven't heard of the man, you should. He was the most, he was the most famous sportscaster of most of our youths, and I mean, oh my God, Howard Cosell. Go finish the story.
No, but that was my only story. He said,
You wait. I cut you off. What
he
happened?
would come in. He would talk to me about it and say, because I'm an intelligent man who understands the sport, and I spend time learning about it, and I learn the players, and I know more than a lot of these so-called experts do because I pay attention. That's what Cosell did. I pay attention. I can appreciate SGA for his talent. I've never played basketball at his level, and I never will. But I'm not going to sit here and say that the guy backs off, has bad fouls, is a shit player, whatever this is, because all it is a guy like Titus and that entire genre that we're into right now just wants to do nothing more than hammer away at somebody. We've always done this. We've always had that sports hate where you can say, I hate this guy, I hate this gal, I don't like the way they play. But these clowns, these nut jobs, these whacks make it personal. Why?
Well,
Why make it personal?
Let's just be racial for a minute here. A guy like that, and a guy like Clay Travis at Outkick Sports, who's got a piece of shit site, excuse my language. A guy like that, those kinds of sites. It's like Jason Whitlock, who, we used to be friends, and he brought me to ESPN. And, not that he had some great social conscience, but he was a great idea guy. And then he, like most of these white guys like Titus, Portnoy, Travis, they realize there's a revenue for the disenfranchised white guy who's just angry at home, either because he had a failed athletic career, he didn't get a job because someone more qualified than him, who happened to be a minority, got a job over. These are angry racists that subscribe to these sites and everything. Have you ever met anybody from that's like an Outkick or a Barstool subscriber, and you go, "Hey, that guy's thoughtful. That guy's
There's
got
no
a,
thoughtfulness here.
that guy's thoughtful. He's not a stupid, he's not an idiot. Like, no, I've never met anybody from those people who are. It's like me and you going to college at 19 and 18, like, or 20. Like, this is great, man. These guys talk. These guys can say what they want.
These
not
guys
like
talk
Ted
smack.
Koppel.
That's what that is.
These guys talk
smack.
smack. This
Listen to them.
isn't your grandpa's site. Like, shut up. You're racist. But anyway, I guess what I'm getting at is I spoke to Ed Berliner, a likable character. However, that man right there, the fastest show in sports host, and the Dolphins go on to win. God, I loved Howard Cosell.
That is on a scale of 1 to 10, that is probably about a 2 on a Cosell. A 3? Yeah, I mean, that's about a 2 or a 3. Because for those who don't know it, Howard Cosell talked like this. He was an erudite.
Go.
He was an individual who sat and watched the games. I find myself watching these games because they have an incredible amount of joy and they have an incredible amount of talent that these young men bring to the game. But I, Howard Cosell, will always tell the truth. Telling it like it. That's the way Cosell spoke. That was his 12 cadence. Brief story, and then I'll move on to something else, but I'll tell you a Cosell story here real quick.
But wait. I was going to say, if anybody, before you see this hear this Cosell story, if anybody watching today has any time, just Google Howard Cosell and Muhammad Ali. Some of the greatest. When Ali died, I went to his funeral in 2016 in Louisville, covered it for the Undefeated at ESPN. Still the best assignment they gave me there in my 3 years there. It was amazing because all these Cosell, Ali, and one of them was just as simple as you're very truculent today, Muhammad, and Ali going, Howard, if whatever that is, if it's good, I'm it. And I'm like, oh my God, this was like they had such an amazing.
He said, "You're very truculent, Muhammad." Howard, I don't know what truculent is, but if it's good, I'm it.
I mean, you couldn't make it up. But anyway, go ahead. We've just hooked everybody over 50, Ed. So.
Pretty soon it'll be every over 60. But if you've never heard of Howard Cosell, you have to at least search him out and learn more about him and see, because he revolutionized the business, changed the industry, just because he wasn't he wasn't an athlete. He was the guy who always said, I'm telling it like it is. And he did. He didn't lie. He didn't bullshit. He basically laid it all out simply and intelligently in everything that he said. I'm a young radio reporter working in Miami. I'm a stringer for several radio networks, and one of them was the ABC radio network. I had a reason to go to New York City and visit some relatives, see some friends. So it was my first chance up there, so I wanted to go meet everybody at the network. Got into the network, went there, was waiting, was walking around, just people saying hi to the different people. Bruce Morton, great people like that. Janet, so many other people that I met at the time. And I was waiting to talk to a couple of other people. And I'm sitting in an anteroom, and there's a studio door, and the studio doors are about 9 feet thick. And in that room is Howard Cosell, and he's recording his daily sportscast, and he's recording telling it like it is. He's doing his commentary.
Speaking of sports.
Speaking of sports. He did Speaking of Sports. He actually did a show in the morning and in the afternoons when radio was very big for this. And I had spoken to Howard briefly at that point once in Miami when he was down for a Dolphins game in a Monday Night Football game, but very briefly. And I waited until he was done. You don't do this. You're not supposed to go in. When the light is on, you don't go on. Okay, the light was on. Light went off.
No.
I opened the door, and 20-something kid who's in there now, and I walked up to him and I said, Mr. Cosell, my name is Ed Berliner. I work in Miami. I'm the stringer for the radio network there. And I just wanted to tell you, it's an absolute pleasure to meet you. Cosell had an unlit cigar about 9 feet long in his mouth, which he always had, these big old stogies. He looked at me, put his cigar down, he said, of course it is.
Oh my God, that's the Han Solo line to Princess Leia in Empire Strikes Back. Like, I love you. I know.
I know.
Like, oh my, that's so good. Oh, that makes him even more a legend in my mind.
It was marvelous. And then he went back to what he was doing and he said, come see me when I'm done. It'll be about another half hour. We'll talk. And I went back and I talked for about 10, 15 minutes with Cosell, and we talked about sports. We talked about his life. We talked about different things. We talked about Ali. But he was the kind of guy where you didn't try to outthink him, and you also didn't try to, when Cosell was telling a story, you didn't try to top the story. Don't do it. Let him tell it. If it's an Ali story, if it's an Olympic story, if it's something about football, something about anything, you just go, okay. Because the minute you try to top Howard Cosell, you're in deep trouble. The man would just blow you down with all the stories and the people that he knew.
Before we move on, he had a real sensitive side too, where people always think of him as this arrogant New Yorker who just
he was.
He obviously transcended sports, and he was, but he had this sensitive side too. I still remember him before the Thrilla, not the Thrilla Manila, the Rumble in the Jungle. He loved Ali. Obviously, he and Ali are linked forever. And he went and he had an interview with Ali before the Foreman fight at his training camp. And he came on at the end after this really nice interview, like, you could get hurt. You could, and because Foreman was so favored, and he was such a, he had a right hand for the ages.
Oh God, he was.
And everybody thought Ali couldn't might not just lose, but might, really get hurt.
Hurt. Yeah.
Yeah, and Cosell came on after the interview on ABC with his, yellow jacket and his ABC, and he goes, I like the kid. I love the kid. I've known him for many years. I don't think he will beat George Foreman. And it just crushed him to say that. And of course, after Ali won, he's like, I told you, Cosell. And then he never did another boxing match after watching the Randall Tex Cobb Larry Holmes fight, because Tex Cobb, even though he was like this guy that came out of the Philadelphia, and he was a brawler,
Cobb got
it was
destroyed.
Yeah, it was just a mismatch, and he just was like, I cannot watch this. It's a debate. Like he said, everything, the ugliness of boxing was so bad to him at that point, he could not do another fight, and he didn't.
You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to get my buddy Randy Gordon in here one time. Randy is the former athletic commissioner of the state of New York. And Randy does a
Okay.
show on Sirius XM. He does a boxing show with Jerry Cooney. And I've known Randy and Cooney for many years. I'm going to get Randy to come in here and co-host with us one day, and
Oh,
we could tell some of these
I'll eat
boxing
it.
stories.
I'll eat it up.
On
All
and on.
right.
Okay.
All right. All right. Old guy hours over. All right, go ahead.
Yeah, but it's history. Cosell
Yes.
and Ali were the greatest sportscaster and athlete tandem in the history
Yeah.
of the genre. There is none other.
Yeah, you can't compare Michael Jordan and Ahmad Rashad or
Nope.
Craig Sager and Dennis Rodman. Craig Sager had the heart of gold, and he was kind of a wild spirit, and he fit Dennis Rodman perfect. But there was nothing like Cosell and Ali. There never will be.
I got it.
Stephen A. and Kevin Durant. No.
Oh, wait a minute. You know
Go ahead.
something? I had a whole thing on Stephen A. that I was going to do, but we've absolutely walked past that.
Yeah.
I'm going to do it another day because Stephen A. is another one
Okay.
that deserves every bit of scorn that he possibly gets. Before we move away from basketball, the WNBA has got to get its shit together and do something about what's going on in this sport right now. Because for a sport that's growing exponentially and people are enjoying it, and they're actually seeing the outstanding athleticism of these basketball players, they are allowing Caitlin Clark to get the crap kicked out of her on a nightly basis. The officiating is awful. I mean, it possibly could be the worst. And I'm not the basketball guy, but I know enough about the sport and I've covered it long enough. This is the worst officiating I've seen in any professional sport in my life. And the way they're allowing Clark to get beat up, they've got to do something here because you've got an angry facet of WNBA players, whether they're jealous of Caitlin Clark, whether they're jealous of the money she makes, whether it's a racial element between the black players are upset that she's a white player getting a lot of accolades. Put it all in there because it's all fair. It's all part of the argument. But something's got to be done because they're losing what is the savior of the sport. I say it out loud. Caitlin Clark helped to move the WNBA to a new level that they've never experienced before. She has helped. She's making everybody millions of dollars. And they got to do something to make this sport not safer, but at least get the officiating right, for crying out loud, Mike. It's awful when you watch the hack attacks that a lot of these players are in. And I'll tell you what, I'll even go one further. The WNBA is 50-50. Maybe not 50-50, 70-30. 70% of the players are outstanding, really great athletes. 30% are hack attack goons, is all they are at that point, just looking to come in and barely play the game, but make it a physical game because they don't have the skills to play real good basketball.
Well, I could take apart some of that, but
Please do.
But your
No,
central
please do, buddy.
but your central point I think is worth talking about, which is why bite the hand that feeds you. And in many ways, Caitlin Clark, there's a reason why the WNBA, and a friend of mine, a good friend of mine, Mitch Thompson, I met him in Mexico because he was a G League coach for the Mexico City Capitanes. Young guy, but like old soul. And we've just become really good friends. And he recently got a job with the Seattle Storm as an assistant under Noel Quinn, the head coach. And shout out to the Storm, by the way. They beat the Liberty and the Lynx, the two best teams in the league recently. But anyway, the Storm, the Storm is now. Mitch sends me a text or WhatsApp message one night saying, I just flew on a charter in the WNBA. The WNBA did not fly charter airplanes before
Commercial.
Caitlin Clark came.
Yep.
And the TV deal changed and everything, and salary started like in less than 2 years, she has become an economic engine for that league. And look, I will say this: she talks shit. She
gives as good as she gets. There's no doubt about it. If you watch a lot of things that happen after the play, Caitlin's right in there.
Right, and she's scrawny, so so she looks like she's taking the worst of it, and she does because she's not as big as some of these athletes. But the issue to me is the officiating. Like if you watch the NBA Finals, there was a play where SGA pushed off the guy on the baseline. I think it was Nemhard for Indiana. And then he took 2 steps back. He not only had committed an offensive foul, he committed a travel in front of the referee, Scott Foster, who
And they
didn't
let
even
it go.
look at his feet, and they let it go. Scott Foster did not work Game 7 for that exact reason. Nobody will say that, but Indiana fans were like, wait, this is our record with this guy. And the NBA didn't want to play with it and was like, you know what, that was such a shitty call. We are not going to have him, one of our marquee officials
Which
work Game 7.
is good for the NBA. I applaud the NBA
Right.
when you take that kind of action.
Right. And so, but now the WNBA has to do it. If you're an official who did not call flagrant foul and ejection when whatever Mabry chest bumped Caitlin Clark and knocked her to the floor after she got into it with a former Ohio State rival. So I guess what I'm saying is that referee should get one warning. If you're ever this negligent in your job again, you're not working in the WNBA. They have to get better officiating because the women's game has improved leaps and bounds. I know there's a lot of goons. I know but that's hockey's got goons, guys that can barely skate.
Wait a minute,
but they
come
beat
on,
the shit out.
don't
But
do
I
that.
get
Don't do that.
okay. But I'm saying what I'm saying is. The women are faster. They're better. Caitlin Clark can shoot from the parking lot. So you need officials to match that kind of athleticism. And you need to
Right.
realize that, I don't know if you don't put a bubble around Caitlin Clark, but
No,
you
see, that's
certainly.
just it. That's the one thing, Mike. I'm not saying call differently for Caitlin Clark. I'm not saying protect her to the point of changing the rules of the game. I'm saying call the game fairly on all sides, because you have a facet of players in the WNBA right now who, for whatever reason, is trying to prove that we can be just as tough, just as physical, just as nasty as the guys. Okay, we get it. But the problem with it is a lot of the officiating is letting them get away with it and letting some of these fouls just basically slide by the board, and you're going to get players hurt. And if you hurt your star, then you're going to have people who won't come out to the game. So I realize it's a tough nut to kind of balance here. You don't want to protect her. I get that. You don't want to protect anybody. Call the game fair to both sides, though, and stop missing so many calls because the officiating sucks right now.
We just previewed Christine Brennan's new book. We should have her on to talk about it because she's she's right where you are. She's right where I am in many respects. Is in that, look, I've said this. Like, if you're a black woman and you played in that league for 10 years, and if you're not a pioneer, you've certainly kept it going. And especially if you're an all-star,
right.
you can have all the resentment and you want that the predominantly white media has not given you the attention that you deserved over the last 10 years. And you can have all the resentment and you want that this white pigtailed girl from Iowa who happens to be heterosexual is all of a sudden a darling of the media. You can have all the resentment you want. You can't take that out on the court because that is part of your meal ticket right now, whether you realize it or not.
Thank you. There's the phraseology to use that makes it very simple. This is your meal ticket. Caitlin Clark right now is the meal ticket for the WNBA, and she's earned it. She is that good. It's not like they're ascending her to some kind of a pivotal role here that she hasn't earned. She's that good. And the fact that with every contract that gets better, every collective bargaining agreement that gets better, every endorsement that comes around, every marketing scheme that hits, it's going to be, directly or indirectly, right back to Caitlin Clark. Sure, there's going to be other players that are part of it, but they're still working off that aura, if you will, that zip, that pizzazz that has been in her right now that she's brought to the league. There's still people out there, Mike, who, when you bring up the WNBA or Caitlin Clark, I see it on social media all the time. They go, "Oh, they still play?" There's some people who, whether sarcastically or not, still don't even know the WNBA is actually a major league.
No, I know that those people are, they still don't realize that U2 has been around for 30 years. But here's the thing about that. Really quickly, Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese, that rivalry. And Angel Reese isn't half the player that Caitlin Clark is. She's a great rebounder. She's a wonderful marketer. My God, she has got Yeah, she patented her own rebounds. She's the Kardashian of the league. Although
Good,
she has
good
substance,
analogy.
she's a hard rebounder. Yeah, but she's built herself up almost. But here's the thing that nobody talks about enough, and it reminds me of when I talked to Cuban years ago about the NBA, and I go like, look, there's this brawl at the Palace between the. Doesn't it look like the angry young black men are getting and like, isn't that gonna ruin the white fan? And he goes, you don't understand this, do you? He goes, no. And I go, no. And he goes, go tell me. And he goes, controversy sells. It
He's
makes
right. He's right.
it makes all boats rise. So this whole now, I want the racial animus removed. I hate that there are a segment of fans out there that like Caitlin Clark because she's white. And because she's showing the young sisters how that person, the racist bastard watching her at home, that person needs to go. But the controversy around like their rivalry and these like the whole everything, like, does Caitlin Clark get too much publicity? Should she get more? All that stuff, it's all boats rise. Everybody's talking. Has anybody had a segment on a sports show in the middle of a WNBA season in the last 2 years before Caitlin Clark? No,
2 years. How
no,
about
we
10 years?
didn't. 10 years. No, this is a moment. The only time, I used to write about the WNBA because I was obligated to in Washington, and I liked Elena Deladon and Natasha Cloud, and some of the Mystic players were just great. And not only were they interesting social activists outside the court, they were just really fun to watch basketball play. But I did it because I was at the Washington Post. And the one story I kept coming back, and I do it almost annually, was like, and people would be so pissed off. I would go, why isn't there a kiss cam at WNBA games? And Sheila Johnson, Bob Johnson's ex-wife, ridiculous billionaire, very close to it if she's not already, owns the Mystics, partner in Monumental Sports with all the teams. She's a huge businesswoman. She admitted to me, like, well, we want family friends. She's basically saying, our fan base doesn't want to see a grandma kissing a grandma that have been together for 30 years. I go, why? A peck on the lips is going to like change the world? Like, they didn't put the WNBA kiss cam up because they didn't want women kissing on camera because they thought they'd alienate the dads and daughter crowd.
Right.
It was stupid. It was stupid, and it was I don't know, sex. What would you call that? Anti-LGBTQ, and now they're like celebrating Pride Month all of a sudden. Like, yeah, you should have been celebrating it
marketing will change
before.
a lot of things. Before we get out of here,
Yeah, you're
I want to
right.
make sure we talk a little hockey here for a couple minutes because, you know, the National Hockey League is a niche sport. I mean, we know that. I don't know. Hang on one sec, Mike. I lost you there for a sec. Where'd you go?
I don't know, but can you hear me?
Hang on, I got you. I'll bring you back.
Okay.
There you go.
That was weird. That was weird. I think that was on your end, Ed. For
Yeah,
once.
no, it was on mine. We had a technical issue. It's okay, but the National Hockey League is always going to be a niche sport. Let's just say that out loud. They're never going to be as big as baseball, football, basketball, soccer in this country. And I think Gary Bettman has basically decided that, okay, we have to live where we are, and let's just be the best we can at where we are right here. But what the National Hockey League does better than anybody else is the players. I mean, who these guys are. The Florida Panthers win the Stanley Cup, and South Florida goes nuts. For those of you watching us on YouTube, I want to make sure to share this with you, because this is what you'll see in hockey that you won't see anyplace else. Brad Marchand riding a wave at a nightclub in Hollywood, Florida, with the Stanley Cup above his head. You will not see them do that in the NBA. They don't do it in baseball. They don't do it with the Lombardi Trophy. They don't do it with the World Cup Trophy. But this guy, they're out there partying with one of the most sacred trophies in the history of North American sports. It's what makes them special, is because these are bruisers and brawlers and beer drinkers and boozers, and they're the same kind of people that everybody loves. And if you take what they've done to the community, I mean, we're also watching here on the YouTube channel, this is some of the video of the people at the parade on the beach which is
It's not. It's
amazing.
90. What is it? 95,
It's
and they're
91,
celebrating the
92
Stanley Cup
degrees.
ice hockey championship.
It feels like it's about 145 degrees in the shade, and these people are going nuts because of what this team has done to this region. But more than anything else, Mike, it's the players. They're goofy, they're fun, they're hard partying. Like I said, they're boozers and brawlers. It's exactly what American sports wants. We want lots of fights, lots of the ability to get physical, and we want guys who'll show up and drink with us at 2 o'clock in the morning. Look, Alexander Barkov took the Stanley Cup to a neighbor's house at 5 o'clock in the morning, rang the doorbell. You saw the ring cam was there, and he said, "You want to come out and see the Stanley Cup?" 5 o'clock in the morning. You don't do that with any other sport. It's just brilliant.
No, and people that don't know the history of the trophy, there is only one Stanley Cup. There isn't one that they keep at the Hockey Hall of Fame in Toronto, and they just have this one around for play. No, they have a guy, I can't remember his name, but we met him in 2018 because he let my two little kids take a picture with the cup when the Capitals won it, and he just follows the cup around. That's his job. He follows the cup around, and because the tradition of the Stanley Cup is every player on the winning team that year has a day with it. The Stanley Cup has been to, Egypt. It's been to,
It's been everywhere.
A mosh pit with Brad Marchand, and it's been to all kinds of lakes on Canada. It's been to the Upper West Side in New York when Mark Messier had Rangers fans drinking out of it with him the day he took it to his neighborhood. This is the most, if it's not the most sacred trophy in sports, maybe the World Cup trophy is. It's the only one where there's one. There's no copy of it, and everybody's name's engraved on it. And so it's just a great story. You talk about what hockey has done and what a great celebration it is. It's the class. I mean, it's almost every sport can lift a. You've seen civic moods change. I remember New Orleans after Katrina, the Saints, they lifted that city up. Michigan State basketball lifted Detroit up after awful times there. And there were and you see it time and time again. You don't want to make too much of sports, but you see, look, bottom line is the Panthers are a great team. I just have one thing to go on the out here before you talk about it, which is, I have a song, Ed. Oh, Canada, you suck at your own sport. You got your ass kicked again by somebody from South Florida. You suck, Sidney Crosby. All you Canuck jokes. Now, I feel bad for the Canadians. They just can't get over the hump.
You don't realize, but you just had a viral moment there. Geez, you should put together the whole song. I'll even go ahead and get the music for you one day.
All right, good. Next week.
Oh God.
No, Friday.
But here's the
Friday. Friday. I'll come up with the words.
Okay. The thing I'm always caught about though with hockey is it is exactly the sport that more people should be watching because it is a physical game. It's a fast game. But it's the fans and the players. There's no other sport in the world. Name one. I dare anybody. There's no other sport in the world where the players, after winning a championship, so want to share it with the fans in every way possible. I mean, from going to bars, going to strip clubs, going to fancy dress balls, going to people's homes, going to hospitals. I mean, Sam Bennett took the trophy, took the MVP trophy to the Humane Center in Broward County just to put the trophy there and have cats and dogs climb around it and get people to come out and help adopt from the Humane Society. You don't get this sort of down-home feel from any other player in any other sport.
No, you're right. I just, when you throw strip clubs and Humane Society into the same category that have been visited by the company, it tells you that, you need to travel with a lot of Lysol. I do not want a lap dance having been done over the cup and then putting champagne in it and drinking out of it. It's just gross.
Yeah, that's my only concern is because I've actually seen
it'll be great.
They've had a bowl full of pasta, a bowl full of chili. They've had soup. They've had clam chowder, everything else in that cup. Are you
It's-
kidding me? You better wash that
here's
damn thing at least 100
here's a,
times
here,
before I eat anything.
here's a great commercial for the NHL. This is where we could get in marketing business. Yeah, like before the start of next season, you just have this huge dishwasher built where you actually put in the Stanley Cup and put it in with whatever it is, Dawn or Ajax, whatever your little pod worth of laundry detergent or dishwashing detergent is, and just see it start washing it, and you
I'm
have
just
highlights of where it's been.
the funny thing is I wasn't this much of a hockey fan when I was younger. I mean, I was a hockey fan. I rooted for the Islanders when I lived in New York, and I was the only
Yeah.
kid in Manhattan who rooted for the Islanders, so I got a lot of crap for that. But I've always been a hockey fan, but never until the last 10, 15 years, because covering sports and covering athletes and being involved in the nitty-gritty and the dirt and the nastiness that goes on and the money and the greed and the drugs and everything else that has gone on and the criminal element that's been involved. I latched
Okay,
on
all
to
of that is
hockey.
by the way, all of that is in hockey in several places.
They
But
they all
but
they all
over
have it. They all have it.
right.
But from a hockey standpoint, there's less of it. And there's more of a
Yeah.
family atmosphere. And there's more of a camaraderie that goes on. Marchand is one of the great stories in sports where he absolutely, completely, and totally despised several players on the Florida Panthers to the point of really wanting to get into a fist fight anytime, anywhere. He gets traded to the Panthers. There, he talks glowingly now of these guys. I love these guys. These are my teammates.
Yeah.
He's talking about coming back. He's 37 years of age. He's maybe got 2 years left. He wants to come back and play again in Florida with guys that he absolutely despised. But for whatever reason, hockey players, because they all kind of work in the same sort of social theater, if you will. The Canadian players know the other Canadian players. The Canadian players know the American players. They know them from college. They know them from a few years there. They know them from AAU teams. They know them from different. They all get
Yeah.
along because they've all kind of created this family atmosphere. I don't want to wax too stupidly philosophical here,
No,
but they
no,
get
but it's
along, and the fans feel it. There's a real
yeah, and I
love
think
affair
too. I
between
think
the
too
players and the
when
fans.
they obviously have money, and they're they don't have money like NFL and the
Not as
NBA
much
have
as the
money in
rest.
Major League Baseball, but I think that helps in some ways too because like what I used to love when I was and I'll tell you one day the story about how hockey, which I didn't know anything really about growing up in Northern California. My folks moved to Hawaii when I was 12, my stepmom and my dad. The only thing I knew about hockey was the Miracle on Ice, which I watched and I was mesmerized. But hockey saved my career. Like the New York Times offered me a freelance story. I had to pretend like I knew hockey, and I went to Canada and did a story on Pavel Bure of the. But anyway, I'll tell you the story one day. But bigger than that is, when I covered boxing back in the day, it was one of the few sports that still needed the print media to sell the fights. So the fighters were so ingratiating. The promoters they told you stories. I don't know if hockey realizes it needs the media like it does, or but the guys are so good to you. I remember every year the Caps would get knocked out before the Cup. I would do an annual story on the night they all got together after, that 2 days later after they lost and they were knocked out, whether they were favored or not. And they showed up either at some sushi restaurant in Georgetown or something. And they would have this male bonding moment where guys would talk about stuff. And the players just would I was a sponge because they would just, yeah, oh man, I was so sad we couldn't do it for backs and we can't do it, and all of a sudden, like, it was almost like, they all had nicknames too, like Ovi, Baxi, it was like
All of them.
it was like Sparky, Skipper, like they were all in the little
Yep.
league step, and you wanted to give them Dixie cups full of Kool-Aid, and it's like there was
Charlie
this, still
McAvoy in
this
Boston
love
is Mac. Brad Marchand is Marshy.
yeah,
Jeremy
Marshy,
Swayman
yeah,
is
like it was,
Sway. I mean,
yeah, they all got
Pasternak
little,
is Costa.
they all
They
got
all
these
have it.
fun
But
nicknames.
you know what the difference though is between the athletes here, Mike, and God, I've seen this, and you've probably seen it too. In every sport, we hear about sources tell us what's going on in the locker room. Somebody tells us what's happening in the NFL locker rooms. You get a leak from an NBA locker room and something's going wrong. Major League Baseball, even soccer, golf, even it happens. In hockey, These guys never talk about anything that's disparaging of anybody in that locker room. It's all fun. It's all guys getting along. But that's the outstanding team
It's like a
element they have in
code.
hockey. It is really a closed society. They'll tell you stories about their families and having fun with the guys and scoring a goal and something. But what goes on in the
It's
culture
a
of that
code.
locker room, never spit it out. Never.
Yeah,
Never.
well, that's one of the hard things about hockey too, is unless the player opens up to you about their own life, which is, I remember Donald Brashear, the old enforcer, like, gave me the story of his life, and I cried with him. But unless they give you that story, they're never going to give you the
No.
story about what happened in the locker room, because that's a code to them.
Sacrosanct.
That's their sanctuary.
Yep.
And once you establish that, sort of, it makes your job a little easier too, because it's like, okay, you don't want me to go there. Well, I got to talk to somebody in the organization. Oh, wait, somebody in the organization is not going to go there. All right, I'll focus on something else. But
They won't do it. There's no kiss and tell in
it's
hockey.
frustrating, but it is, that's hockey. So
There is no kiss
it's
and
like,
tell in hockey.
yeah.
All right, we got to get
Yeah.
out of here. We've got.
All
But
right.
I get there was so many other things I wanted to do, and I got to hit on Stephen A. Smith one of these days, because
Yeah.
this guy's just grinds me. Don't forget. YouTube channel, The Fastest Show in Sports. Watch all the videos, watch all the shorts, watch all the segments and everything. You can even watch them. They're shorter than the regular show, although you can see the whole show there because YouTube also has podcasts. You get the audio podcast wherever you get your favorite podcast. Just look for Fastest Show in Sports. Podbean is where we are situated. That's our home, but you can get it anywhere at any time and do all that. Cowboy, go ahead. I'll give you
Well,
a
I
last.
just want to,
Go ahead, buddy.
I just want,
ahead.
I just want to say, Ed, that this ain't the fastest show in sports that much. It's the longest show in sports. That's it. But I want to just say right now, I'm bringing an open invite to all you Outkick subscribers and you Barstool Sports subscribers. If you subscribe to a website that caters to angry white people, well, you come over here because we're not angry, and you won't feel so bad about yourself after listening and watching us.
Not only are we not angry, but we're a hell of a lot smarter than the other guys, guaranteed. We've actually been there. All right, Mike.
That's right.
For Mike Wise, I'm Ed
Ed,
Berliner. Thanks for joining us,
have
everybody.
a great
Rock
rest
on,
of the
true
week.
believers. Till next time, see ya.
Goodbye, Panama.
That's all, folks.